Welcome to Mastery Fractional CFO's Punchy podcast, short, impactful podcasts where I speak with business leaders from all walks of life and ask them about their business. I'm Ryan Chenier, your host. My company is Mastery Fractional CFO Services. I'm the founder and CEO of Mastery Fractional CFO Services, and today I've got with me Sean Rayland Bubar. Sean is, Sean, you are an Indigenous social entrepreneur and the owner of Red Rebel Armour Inc. Red Rebel Armour is one of the leading Indigenous clothing brands in Canada, and the company manufactures its products in Winnipeg, but operates primarily as an e-commerce business. Sean, tell us about who you are and what you do. Tell us about your business.
For sure. Bonjour, Indigenous. My name is Danny Sasquatch Man, and I'm from the Eel Clan. My given name, as you know, is Sean Rayland Bubar, Saging Indonji. So that means I'm from Saging First Nation. And I'm the owner and founder of Red Rebel Armour, an Indigenous made streetwear brand on a social mission to reduce recidivism through our on-the-job employment service, on-the-job paid training employment service. So what we're looking at doing with our business is hiring our relatives that are exiting the criminal justice system. And that comes from, my own personal history, background. I'm an ex-gang member, ex-addict, and going through that phase in my life and then learning about social entrepreneurship. I started to see that I could use my life experiences to help out other relatives that are trying to get on the right path. There's just a lot of barriers that exist out here. And through our business, we're trying to reduce those barriers, such as, transportation, criminal record, or no, maybe it's your first time being employed. But because you've been surviving out here and because of my life experience, I understand that you have skills that are transferable, right? So you might have been out here surviving, maybe you were selling stolen goods or something, whatever it was, but you still know how to sell, right? So if we could use that on the good road, that's a good thing. So it's just easier for you to transition into, living a legit life. That's what I tell them.
And I know you, we've been working together now for 5 or 6 months, and I know you're a purpose-driven person, and I'm impressed by that. What inspired you to begin this business?
It really, I remember when I first got released in May 2018. I got released while I was in prison that time. I studied for my mature grade 12. I stopped hanging out with anybody on the range, whatever it was, and I just went right in the cell and I just studied physics, whatever it was, to get these credits, right? And they implemented a 15-minute phone call rule at that time, so you could only make 3 calls a day. So I didn't want to waste the calls on trying to figure out the questions. But so I ended up just figuring this stuff out. But so now that I'm out, I'm like, hey, how could I put this education to use? I went online and just started searching for all different types of things. I started doing surveys for 10 cents a survey. I was like, because I'm really trying to find a way to make an income online. And so I started designing logos for local companies. I was, doing as much, what is that called, like YouTube University as I could, that's just trying to take all the lessons. And I started learning about building websites and all these different things. And then I just started thinking about, my community and how, I felt, and I still do, that I'm on a redemption journey. I still have to restore some of the damage that I caused. And so I wanted to put a different message out there because I always felt like as a young person, being in the community, all that, at the same time, we're perpetuating some of the things that we're going through, right? I always bring up some other brands that are in our neighborhoods, right? There's no hate on those brands, but like the Hustle Gang and Crooks and Castles, when we're talking about ourselves like that, right? It's putting out the wrong message, and it's almost like making doing the wrong thing okay, So I was like, okay, so how could I create something that puts out a good message? Because during this time, I was going to a lot of sharing circles in our community with a local knowledge keeper named Lyle Houston. And I met him in the remand center, and I wanted to reconnect with him when I got out. And that's where he told me to come. Well, if you want to talk to me, come to sharing circles. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And that was like, okay, how come we don't have this message on clothes? How come we're not talking about all these good things and healing and all this on clothes? And so I wanted to kind of combine the two. And, I was thinking of what could be the vehicle for that. And it kind of led me to streetwear. It's like, I've always liked streetwear. It's fashionable, famous rappers wear it, all these things. So how could we kind of change the message a bit and talk about our culture and talk about healing and talk about resilience? And from the perspective of doing the inner work, not always like, oh, we're going through all this stuff and it's your fault and blaming. It's like, let's take accountability for what we could and let's work from there. That's always been my approach. And so with creating Red Rebel Armour, that's what it was, is like, okay, all these things are out here, but that doesn't mean we have to let it hold us down. We just recognize those challenges and we overcome. So let's do this with social enterprise and try build this model. And, it's always been against the grain. I've always been, just working against everything, the old beliefs of, my own personal journey, also self-limiting beliefs within our family line. When I decided to study social innovation and community development or even apply for it, I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to get funding from my band. And everybody in my family told me that I could never get funding from my band. They don't fund us, they said, like our last name in our family. And I was like, well, I'm going to try anyways. And it worked. So I was like, how many cousins and how many people have we been telling that they can't get funding over this assumption, So everybody I talk to in my family now, yeah, go apply, I got it. Like, if it aligns with what the band needs, it helps out, right? What I was trying to do was economic development. So that's a bit of the why, a bit of the history, my background, and just looking at, I was just talking with one of our recent new recruits. And so he's like right in the phase where at Red Rebel Armour, in the beginning, it's just, you're just showing up on the job, you're just on call type thing. But if you keep showing up and we know you're reliable and you really want to change, you really want to work, we get you connected with our partner card in the community. So that's the Center for Human Resources for Aboriginals. I can't remember the full acronym right now, but through them, we could get a targeted wage subsidy. We commit to the employment and training piece and then commit to hiring them on full time from there. And so one of the things I was going to share with you was like, when I was talking with the new guy, I said, you realize how I pay you at the end of the day, right? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so the reason why we pay you at the end of the day is because I know you need basic needs. I know you need basic needs immediately, as this person just got out of the remand, and they're also waiting for other programs, trying to do some things, but there's wait lists, 8-month wait lists, all these things. Those are, sometimes that poses challenges for somebody that's trying to get their life right, and especially needing access to cash. So we could say, like, in Winnipeg, there's a lot of gangs that could provide you the money for basic needs right away. So that was also a reason for why I wanted to develop this. I'm like, well, if the gangs could give this guy a job right away, how come we can't do that? You know what I mean? And so it was, with the brand, I was like, okay, I want to try to mimic that, but obviously in a good way. And he's like, so he said to me, he's like, Sean, yeah, no, I appreciate it. And he's like, to be honest, at the end of the day, when I get paid right now, I'm using half of that for transportation. I was like, wow, like, because he's paying whatever, $20 there, $20 back, or whatever type ride situation. So that led me to think, like, start brainstorming, how could we get a little Red Rebel Armour van, something like that, where we're able to still provide, still go pick people up and do that stuff, to do that transportation piece. And so, yeah, that's one of the examples I have from somebody we're just recruiting.
What I love about your approach is it's very constructive and resourceful, right? It's just focused on good things, easy for people to get behind and get on board with. I think it's pretty impressive.
Yes.
Now, the brand itself, tell us about the brand itself, like the actual product and what the brand is communicating, and why people are so interested in your brand, because your business has been growing, which we'll talk about. But let's talk about the brand for a moment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the brand, it's rooted in many things, but of course it's social justice. I know I spoke about that, but also cultural preservation and healing. Just one second. Kaylee, can we do that later? It's because it's recording. Then we'll take care of that. No, that's okay. I'm in the dining room and someone's in the kitchen. But so yeah, with the brand, it's rooted in love, medicine, and healing. I talked about the social justice piece, cultural preservation. but also just making nice, beautiful art. There's people that come to our brand because they love authentic Indigenous arts. They know Indigenous artists are making it. They know we're producing it. And that's, it's a huge thing because there is a lot of art that gets appropriated and things like that. So people want to make sure that they're getting from, an authentic source. That's a strong piece. And also when I share my personal story too, that just resonates with a lot of people, when we're talking about empowerment and overcoming challenges and obstacles, people like supporting the brand on that front. And the other piece is the actual quality of the products. Like the hoodies are super soft, ring spun cotton, really cozy. So that really connects with our customers. It's like, here we have a strong message, but we also have high quality clothes to match that too, right? So they are stylish. We also, like, a lot of our customers are from different walks of life as well, but executives, people that are working in education, social workers, they're out in the community. There's a big, I always explain this to people that I thought that was really huge. And in terms of advocacy and taking our brand message a bit further, is I had a customer reach out to me. I didn't know at the time, but she bought one of our lamback crew necks, and she wore the lamback crew neck to her service. She was giving a sermon. I can't remember the name. I don't know if she wasn't a priest, but she was very similar to, the hierarchy in the church. And she went and shared my story there, in front of everybody. And she just messaged me to tell me that. And just like, hey, Sean, I just want to let you know that I did this. I hope you're not offended or anything. I'm like, no, because there's no way I'm going to put on my lamback hoodie or sweatshirt and go in there and share my story. You know what I mean? Like, it had to have been someone from you. So in a way, we're creating these like mini advocates out here. They're talking about the brand, talking about change, and talking about like that, there are people out here that can change and it is possible, so that's a huge piece. And we offer hoodies, crew necks, t-shirts, joggers, shorts. I do some drop shipping with shoes. I designed some shoes through a company called Alive Shoes, and I wanted to create some shoes that, some executives could wear when they're, in their board meetings or whatever it is, when they're out there, other entrepreneurs. Not everybody wants to wear some of our big advocate pieces, right? So, we have a Chiefs for Justice. It's a big Chiefs head with all this empowering messaging. Like, there's customers that align with that. And then there's other customers that align with, our lavender dream tee, where it just has a nice embroidered logo on the side. And it's just, it's nice and clean. So I try to design things for different segments of our audience. And, but I do feel a strong urge to move towards making clothes for entrepreneurs. So that's something I might want to do in the future.
Interesting. Yeah, the embroidery products you sell really struck me as being quite impressive, actually, from a quality point of view. I mean, it was really
Yeah,
outstanding.
very nice. Yeah, and that lavender dream tea, the reason why we called it lavender dream, when I was in a sweat lodge during a ceremony, I got to learn about lavender, the medicine of lavender. And so the knowledge keeper, put some medicine out there for us. And so what it does is it helps you speak your truth. It helps you be honest. And so I thought, hey, why not? That's the perfect combination with our messaging and trying to, pass that teaching along through the clothing as well. So when you're wearing these clothes, you could feel like that, like you're walking in your truth. And with Red Rebel Armour, that's what it's about. Like our logo, it looks like a star, but it's a turtle because it's all about walking in your truth, right? And so when you get that healing and you know what I mean, you're feeling empowered, you could be that person. So that's kind of how I explain the logo.
Right on. Okay. Now, the growth of your business has experienced some success, and your business has grown over the last couple of years. Tell us about some of the strategies you've employed, maybe from a sales perspective or business
Yeah.
development perspective. What has
Yeah.
worked for you, and tell us about that growth.
What's really worked for me, because, I was always thinking about this too, like, of course, talking with other entrepreneurs or potential investors, like, what's driving it? What's driving it? I hear that lots, and I'm like, I don't know, my purpose, I'm always selling and things like that. And then so I'm like, hey, thinking of strategy, what did I do in the beginning? I grew this business from the basement, from there, I made a mistake early on in the beginning. Now that's why we have the made to order business model. But in the beginning, I just printed a bunch of one design, and that was my first, like, I think I bought 100 t-shirts and, whatever equipment there when I was in the basement. And those t-shirts I got stuck with. So I because during this time, I was going to RRC Polytech and I was studying for the social innovation and community development. So I was like, I'm just going to bring these shirts here and just try sell them. And I literally, because I really needed that money back, I flagged everybody down in the hallways and, hey, Sean Rayland, this is my brand. At then, it was mainly a sober living streetwear brand, because I was going through this healing phase and just talking about that. And so it grew into what it is now, but it started with that. And so just talking to a lot of the other students and a lot of the teachers were buying t-shirts too. And I had another teacher call me to his classroom, bought 20 t-shirts all for the students right there. It's like, oh, right on. There's whatever, made $400 or whatever it was. But it was that empowered me because coming from that old lifestyle, doing this school thing and seeing that I could still use those skills that I had in a good way, and it's actually turning out, because at first it was just a theory, right? But it's like because how do you go from what you used to do to selling t-shirts? Like it's a totally different market, right? So it's like, how am I going to talk to people? And I had to learn all these different things about content and yada yada yada. But I ended up talking to all these students and I ended up getting rid of those t-shirts. And so fast forward a bit, I'm still growing the business by investing in myself, learning Facebook ads, learning, different types of marketing, email marketing, pretty much anything digital marketing, because during this whole time too, I've always been, a parent, having my kids, close to me in some way, and just having to try to be, still run a business and still be a parent, and, just juggling both worlds, right? And so when I did get my first staff, I had staff come out of Stony Mountain. They reached out to me. Hey, I heard you're changing things around. Like, are you really doing that? Are you really a good person now? Because I need a job and I'm on parole. So if you're not, you're going to send me back, And it's like, yeah, I'm at the Social Enterprise Center. Come check me out. And, we just started working. And that's when I started realizing it was like, okay, now that I have this person here, that I trained to heat press, because we were just using the heat press then just to make the quality products. And I could go invest more into learning more about ads and more about selling and reaching out to different people, different mentors in the social enterprise space. I reached out to Sean Loney. I talked to Sean Hogan, pretty much everybody that was in the social enterprise center. I'm really just trying to find different sales channels, whatever it was. And we had a lot of support from the community, Social Enterprise Center, other nonprofits that, were purchasing custom orders. So that kept us going, and it got to a point too where sales slowed down, and the first staff that I hired at that time was Justin. And it was like, well, Justin, like, our sales slowed down. I don't know what's going to happen. We might just have to let you go. I know it sucks, but it is what it is. I'll try transfer you to Build, because they were inside the Social Enterprise Center. So at least you're still employed, right? And when I talked to Sean Loney at that time, he's the one who told me about targeted wage subsidies and CARD. He's like, well, maybe you could get a targeted wage subsidy, and that way it won't be so much pressure on you to keep him hired, So it was like, I always talk about it as one thing after another, but it was really a chain reaction, because when that happened, I realized it freed up time for me to learn more about sales. And it's always been, the Facebook marketing and Instagram. With Shopify, because we're an e-commerce brand, Shopify during that time, they gave me, I think, $200 or $300, something like that, for my very first cash advance loan through them. And so, I used that, put that in ads. We made the money back there. And I just keep doing that, and they started giving us bigger loans and things like that. And I also signed up for pitch competitions. I won second place in the powwow pitch. It's a national competition from, it's USA and Canada. And so I used those funds to get us out of the Social Enterprise Center. And that was all just a big, it was all just I winged it, but I knew that we had because we were only in a 300 square foot office. So we had so much boxes piling up, and then we had to use access storage down the street. So if we made a mistake on 1XL, we'd have to go down 3 flights of stairs, cross Main, go up 3 flights of stairs. It was such a pain to get these orders done. So getting that warehouse allowed us to streamline a lot of that. And so But because of, rebuilding my credit, rebuilding all of this during that period, I was able to get in there, get a 5-year lease. When we went there, it was just like, hey, I know we need it because we got boxes piling up everywhere, but I don't know how we're going to generate sales. And it's always been like, just reach out to people, cold call people, message people, old customers, whatever it is. Let's get these orders generating. And yeah, and that's been about it. And just kind of repeating that process using different things, Facebook ads, doing the same things, just scaling it up.
And today you've got a significant social media following. You've got a facility that you operate from or out of. You've got staff. How many people do you have on staff right now?
We have 4 full-time staff and about 5 on-callers, part-timers, you could say. These past 3 months, we've had, a significant increase in sales. And I was just talking with my partner too, is like, no wonder why everything kind of feels like it's breaking a bit, because we're still trying to do this amount of work with the same amount of staff, and then bringing in new staff. Our training manuals, like we need to update a lot of this stuff because our core team's been working here. So we know all the little nuances, all the little tiny things. I need to update our training manuals because some of the output has been, we're, making mistakes and things like that. So that taught me to just go in there and probably color code everything and just make it better. So when new staff come in, they're not making the same mistakes we did because we're, made a better program.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges with growth, right? You grow, but then the situation changes, and there are struggles that arise when the business starts reaching these new levels of growth and success, and you have to rise to those challenges. Tell us, Sean. We've talked about the sales side a little bit. What about on the operations side? Like just in terms of trying to manage inventory and trying to manage the processes and systems that you've got in place and the people, your HR strategy. What's been the greatest challenge that you're trying to deal with right now that you may have even solved, but that you've really had to struggle with over the last, call it, year or so?
It's always been inventory. Inventory is it's a huge beast and not having always the capital to just get a container or something. Like that's where we're at now. So that could be parked there and it causes a lot of bottlenecks. And because of our made to order business model, we're selling products. It's almost like we're drop shipping too, you know what I mean? And sometimes the product goes out of stock from Circle's side, but they didn't tell me until I placed the order and a customer placed an order and now I have to get them to exchange and then I got to update the site. Yeah, there's always a lot that comes from inventory, that I could see all these other little things. We use a software called Katana to help us manage the manufacturing. In the beginning, it was if, we got an order, we went manually did it on an Excel sheet. The software now just automatically pulls the items from the batch. And so it notifies me, like I usually go in and check it all the time, but it'll send me an email when we fall below a threshold for a certain item, usually 6 pieces. And I recently just updated the software. So it only takes a couple clicks to know what I need to order from our suppliers, because before I had to go in and manually figure it out. And because when I did first set up the software, I only used a quarter of the functions, right? That's all I needed. Now we grew a bit. It's like, okay, now we need this other side. And I had to, set up the software a bit. So it just takes a couple buttons so we know what to click, to order. And in terms of like, I was just thinking about this over the weekend is like, here we are trying to, get to whatever we're trying to do now. We're trying to do 1.8. We're trying to get to here. But we're also trying to do this with our relatives that are just getting on their feet, right? To them, they just need a safe workplace to come that's, providing steady work. That's where they're at. They're not with me saying, oh, we got to do this 1.8. They're not there yet. And so that's okay. They have helped us get to this point for sure. But I know, and with my lack of experience too, like this is all learning. I'm still watching YouTube videos, still, learning from you guys, learning from whichever other mentors I'm reaching out to. So it would be nice if I could possibly get some executive level staff that maybe have some experience in logistics already. So we don't have to figure everything out from scratch and help us streamline a lot of that. it allows me to be the servant leader that I need to be for our staff as well, because they really need that. And I had to learn that, because in the beginning, I was like that all the time, like whatever you need, I'm here and here. And as the business was growing and my task list started growing, and I couldn't always be there for them that they needed that mentorship. And so now I've been able to kind of streamline my workflow a bit so I could be there for them. For instance, with the one couple clicks to order inventory now makes things so much easier, because before it was taking like an hour and a half reviewing all these sheets and stuff like that. But so now just taking that approach, and it's been a lot better. Things have been a lot smooth. Is like, hey, you know what? If you made a mistake, where did I not create this environment to prevent that? Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of things could have been prevented had I created just a better work environment, essentially. And so that's something I plan on doing within the next few months, just optimizing the shop. So, new staff come in. For instance, we have 3 transfers that are named Landback. There's Landback NLN, Landback Dance, Landback Female, right? For somebody that just got there, they don't know what's going on. They're printing all different Landbacks. They're asking like which one, so those are some things I'm going to put some pictures around, just kind of streamline that. That's kind of, those have been our challenges, inventory and just trying to take it to the next level. But we also don't really have that experience ourselves, and I don't want to put a lot of pressure on our staff that are just getting, their life together. They don't need to have all that pressure just yet, right? They're just figuring out some of the basic things. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I know I need some executive staff.
Yeah. For any business that's growing, especially an e-commerce business, the sales and advertising component, that's a huge thing. And the more you learn, the more there is to learn, it seems. And then once you've got that momentum on the sales side, then being able to effectively deliver on what it is you're selling, making sure the inventory is in stock and that the people know what they're trying to do from a roles and responsibilities point of view. You mentioned Katana and the systems that you need to have in place, and the warehousing situation. What does that look like now? What's it going to look like in the future? How are we going to manage? How are we going to capitalize on potential efficiencies? It gets to be a lot, and it's something where the original visionary in the business, which would be yourself in this case, needs some support on executive level support. And there's different ways to bring that in. You and I started doing business. You started doing business with my team and me several months ago, I think it was about 4 or 5 months ago, we actually began doing business together. And that's because on the finance side, on the financial side, not just sales, not just operations, but financially speaking, e-commerce businesses struggle when they grow because there are situations with managing inventory gets into cash flow challenges. We've got the sales potentially next month, but do we have the cash to fulfill on those sales that we could potentially get? Managing any sorts of debt that arise in the business. In some cases, you borrow money to help build the capabilities and the infrastructure to grow the business, but then you need to pay back that debt, and that can affect cash flow as well. And it can be a challenge managing the debt, understanding the timing of all of it. Sean, from your point of view, tell us about your experience leading up to when you and I spoke on the financial side of things, and then maybe give us some insight into how things progressed once you started speaking with me and we started doing business together.
Yeah, definitely. Like, to be honest, our finances were a mess. You couldn't really see anything. And I remember when I first met with you, it was like, Ryan, all I'm doing right now is making sure sales are coming in. I'm just doing that. And it just, because, our balance sheet was out of whack or out of place, our P&L wasn't showing actuals. So there's a lot of different things that were going on with it. And, what we like, of course, I don't want to bash anybody. I don't want to say anything like that. We could edit out whatever. But, we did have problems with our old bookkeeper, and so talking to one of our mentors, we got referred to you, and we were able to look at things and, actually go back and see where some of the mistakes happened. I know in the first few years, like, that was okay because the sales they weren't as much, you know what I mean? Like, I think it was easier for our bookkeeper at the time to manage, but there was a few growth spurts that kind of happened, through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, through, September 30th, there's an increase for orange shirts. These different things increase their revenue. And some of the connections that were made through the app to QuickBooks, from Shopify to QuickBooks, they shut off or whatever it was. And it created a bunch of backlog and a bunch of inaccuracies. And so when we got together, we were able to look at that. able to, kind of backtrack it and see where it would be, a good starting point, right? Of like, of factual data, just because of all the numbers were going in different buckets and things like that. And so, it was a mess. So with working with you, we've been able to, get our books to a place of clarity. We could see what's going on. We could actually see the liabilities. At one point, I had my bookkeeper, but I was also keeping my own. I didn't realize at the time, but I made my own balance sheet where I was keeping track of my debts on there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, something isn't adding up here, right? And so that's how we, got to speaking. And one thing that I've never used, and like when I did work with Futurepreneur, because that's somebody that helped us get funding too. They gave us $5,000 for I think it was like a startup hustle program, but I made a cash flow forecast with them then, and that's pretty much where I left it off. That's been that's been like probably one of the biggest mistakes I made on the financial side, because I've been doing the cash flow forecasting in my head up until that point, until we started working together. And since we've started using the cash flow forecast, it's been a lot easier for me, like on my life anyways, with helping being able to sleep and all this stuff. Like, so if there's other entrepreneurs out there that are similar to me, carrying everything around in your head and doing all that, use the cash flow forecast. Helps out things, like it just helps out things a million. So I'm happy to know where our business performance is at. It's now, I feel like we could take it to the next level. Of course, during that whole process, I've also, made a lot of mistakes. I've made my financial mistakes, things like that. And so now I'm just looking at repairing that, getting Red Rebel Armour to a, better financial place, and just, scaling the operations. We have the demand there and all things like that. Just trying to build the infrastructure. And, I think we have a strong financial team now. Like, I feel comfortable about the finances. Of course, we're generating revenue. We have a lot of liability, but I feel confident that we're going to develop a plan to take care of all that. And yeah, it's have a peace of mind. Anyways, that's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me. For sure, the books are now clean. You now have accurate, up to date finances. You're looking at them, understanding them. We're helping you interpret them, and we're bringing to the table insights that I think are helpful. We've got the cash flow forecasting in place, and the next steps are to build out the budget for the next couple of years, and to look at potentially outside investors coming on board. So there's a lot of good things on the forefront on the financial side. But tell me, what's your vision overall for the business? What's next for Red Rebel Armour? And when I say what's next, like in the next year or two, and then what do you see maybe 5 years or 10 years out?
Yeah, in the next year or two, for sure, definitely want to optimize everything that we're doing, right? Just let's get efficient with what we're doing before we go any further with sales. Just I feel for some of my customers too. During this period, we had Canada Post that put us behind, and then the things that we were putting out weren't always up to par either, because of some of the training gaps that we had there. And so I want to optimize all that. I want to make sure that our customers could be proud of our products, that they feel good when they receive it. So I want to optimize our operations to get to that point. I would say that'd probably be, our first year, definitely our first year, figuring that out, paying down liability, getting to a stronger point. And from there, I would want to expand to, international markets. I know there's a demand for Indigenous products in the Indo-Pacific region. We had one of the ministers reach out to us, so possibly creating, some type of market there where we're just offloading inventory there. Also looking at more corporate clients. The past few months we had a customer place a few larger orders, probably the largest orders we had. And those type of orders, those ones feel safe and they feel good for my staff, especially the ones that are exiting the system and that are trying to reintegrate, because it's a constant flow of work. You're coming to work, you know what you're doing every day, because it's a bigger order. As opposed when we're doing Shopify, our customs, there's a lot, every day's changing, it's always changing. Here we're doing this. These are priority now. I know this was priority yesterday. Like, there's a lot more change. So it'd be nice to have those bigger orders where we're just collaborating with said corporation, say they like our protection path, Let's put our logos on it, do a campaign, something like that. That'd be awesome. Plus, all those funds are helping fund our social purpose for our guys. Those are some things that I would like to try get more clients like that. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. Like up to the 5 years, like that might not sound like a whole lot, but I know it'll be a whole lot because we do the manufacturing, it adds a whole new element to it, right? We always have to make sure we're hitting our lead times. When a bigger order does come in like that too, I have to make sure, okay, well, we have 500 Shopify, we have this many staff. How am I going to make it all work? Who am I going to bring in? Do I have time to train them fully? Like, yeah, all these different things, right? And so what I really love about where Red Rebel Armour is, on the supply chain, right? Like, we're a little bit of a wholesalers. We're a little bit of a retailer. We're getting our raw materials, which are blanks. And now we create one of our own raw materials, the actual prints in-house. And that creates more value, I think, especially with what's going on down south. Made in Canada has become really number one again in Canada. And that's what we're doing. Our products, final transformation is happening here. Over 51% of the cost is happening here. So we're able to, we're made in Canada products. So it's like, yeah, it's another value added anyways on that front.
For sure. Okay, well, Sean, if somebody's looking to find Red Rebel Armor products, where's the best way for them to look? How would they go about finding them?
You could find us on our website at redrebelarmour.ca. Armor with the U, AMOR or AMOUR.ca. And also on Google, we're on Google. We also have products. If you're located in Winnipeg at the INAC store, Indigenous Nations Apparel Company. Yeah. And pretty much the best place is just going online though. And, we do D2C there. So when that order comes through, we'll be manufacturing it with love and care and shipping it your way.
Right on. And Sean, for any other entrepreneurs in the e-commerce space that are coming up, their business is growing and they're starting to struggle on the financial side, what advice would you give them regarding working with a fractional CFO, like Mastery Fractional CFO Services?
The advice that I would give them is, well, if they're just, I guess, if I'm thinking, might have to edit this piece because I'm thinking of the different entrepreneurs and what different levels they're at. But definitely, I'm all for the cash flow forecast. I'm all like in there. Like if an entrepreneur, my advice to an entrepreneur that's just getting started is just use the cash flow forecast, build it into your skill set, and it'll make things a lot easier when it comes to making decisions or new opportunities, right? When you have something that might come up, but it might not align with cash flow right now. So that'd be my biggest thing.
Okay. And we're going to be getting into proper budgeting and forecasting on the profit and loss and the balance sheet, as well as the cash flow forecast. And that's going to provide even more clarity, Sean. So I'm excited about where that's going to go for you in terms of helping you see ahead, be proactive, align the efforts on the sales side and operations side with the finances and have everything really working together. That's going to enable the next phase of growth. And ultimately, it's going to enable Red Rebel Armour achieving your vision. So that's looking forward to working with you. And it's been a pleasure working with you to this point as well.
Yeah, no, the feeling's mutual. Yeah, I just feel because of in 2024 it really was a struggle cash flow wise, learning about to use deferrals. Like there was a point in January last year where I was just like, I turned to my wife, was like, man, I made some mistakes, I didn't account for some things, like we're gonna lose our business. We shed some tears, we're like, oh man, no, like because we worked so hard and we're thinking of our staff and everything. And it was just like, okay, what am I good at? I'm good at selling. Let me just go back to selling and just see what happens. Talking to people, such as this, coming for a podcast, talking to students, college executives. We went and talked about liquor and lotteries the other day. They bought a bunch of things. They're looking at getting some things for their, for the casinos in Manitoba. So I'm like, hey, that's just what I got to stick to. I got to do that. But I'm also juggling like just the admin stuff and doing that too, right? But I know if I stick to just telling that story, just sharing, because that's the truth, sharing that and showcasing that there is relatives that are willing and ready to work and change their life. They just need that safe space created. And so, yeah, just sticking to that. But I just wanted to share that because that was a challenging time. I wish I had Ryan Mastery CFO then, so we could look at everything and make plans. But I'm glad I made it through, reached out to who I did. And when I'm just thinking of a piece of advice that I would share is don't be afraid to ask for help. You might be afraid, but just ask, sometimes as entrepreneurs, sometimes I think we kind of just get caught up where sometimes we might think we have to know everything or whatever it is, or especially when it comes to finances, right? It's almost like, you're letting someone in your closet when they're, when they're in your finances, right? They're seeing everything. So it is scary, but that, just do it, because if you were in a position that I was, like, it needed to be done. It needed to be done. And so just having the courage to just ask for help. Just ask for help. It's okay. I hear that from other entrepreneurs, other networking sessions. Hey, just ask for help if you need it.
There's a lot of wisdom in that, and you mentioned tiers. Like when I was in the corporate world, I was 14 years in the corporate world, and I was working with very large clients, multi-million-dollar businesses. And generally the people I was dealing with, it might be a CFO or a vice president of operations, but they were on the payroll. What I love about working with smaller businesses now in my own practice is that there is a huge amount of passion, blood, sweat, tears. It's so there's an emotional component to it, and it's uh, it makes you feel good being able to work with people who really care and want to make a difference, not just for themselves and their own families, but most entrepreneurs I find do have a much bigger purpose that's driving them. Otherwise, why would you do it, right?
Yeah.
That purpose that makes it fun and makes it enjoyable. Otherwise, it's not easy. I don't recommend entrepreneurialism to anybody who's looking for an easy way out. It's not quite like that.
Yeah, no. If you like putting in the work, you like doing that, then it's definitely for you. It's something that always takes constant work, always learning, always something. I'm always reminded of what I don't know, and that gives you humility too. I like that piece too. Just, hey, I'm always a student. I'm always a student going through this, and yeah, it just helps. It just helps. It's what it feels like the more you develop as a human being, the further you could take your business too. Now you're able to speak. Now you're able to articulate. Now you're able to connect with people. Now you're able to, do these different things, lead people, in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want your business to grow, you have to grow. And it's fair ball to ask for help because there's people out there who are more than happy to get involved with a good purpose and a good passion and that kind of energy that comes with making a business grow. So Sean, thank you so much for appearing on our show. I really appreciate having you as a guest. For our listeners out there, if there's anything you enjoyed about today's show, please share it with another business owner or anybody else who might be interested in any of the material. Thanks again, Sean. I think that's it. Unless there's anything else, if you want the last word, over to you.
Yeah. No, I think, I'm honored that you invited me to come out and share. And again, I reiterate and just thank you for, being able to help us, give us clarity on that financial piece. That's so huge because it's setting up the foundation, but also, creating that future for our relatives that I'm always talking about that, hey, this is somewhere safe you could come work. This is somewhere that you could find change and you could find goodness. You could feel whole again like a human being. Also, that's thank you for helping us with that.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Goodbye, all.